The unclear death of James St. Patrick, formerly known as Ghost, has created one of the biggest ongoing debates in the history of television series. While there may seem to be more people on the side of Ghost surviving that final night at Club Truth, there are quite a few that believe Ghost is dead and never returning to the Power universe ever again. Whether it's due to not fully understanding the purpose of those final 5 perspective episodes in the OG Power series, or whether it may be due to the fact that actor Omari Hardwick still hasn't reached a deal with Starz that they both could agree to. And even more recently with the ongoing interviews that 50 Cent has done calling Omari out for overpricing himself. In this final video of my Ghost Town series, I will be taking a closer look into what has recently gone down between 50 and Omari Hardwick, and break down whether or not this supposed ongoing feud is actually something that could ruin any chance of a Ghost return to power, once and for all. I will also point out a strange moment in the finale of Book 2 that could line up with a theory from one of my previous Ghost Town videos. And lastly, I will give my final verdict on whether or not the chances of Ghost being alive and finally returning are over. 50 Cent recently did an interview on The Breakfast Club where he was specifically asked whether or not he feels Omari Hardwick was ungrateful. In my opinion, there's quite a few people that are overreacting and blowing what 50 said out of proportion. If you really pay attention and listen to what 50 said, he was speaking from 2 different standpoints. 50 was speaking from a friendship standpoint as well as a business standpoint. All 50 was really saying was that he already helped Omari once before when he needed the money, and how there's only really so much he can do with making sure Starz paid Omari what he was asking for to return. Now some people might see what 50 said as disrespectful when he mentions the fact that Omari hasn't really had any movie releases that the fans were excited about. But what some are failing to realize was that 50 was only really speaking as an executive producer when he said that. When you really think about it, Omari Hardwick hasn't really had any box office hit movies since we last saw him on Power. So what this means is that when Omari and Starz sat down to negotiate a deal, Omari Hardwick didn't really have any leverage other than the fans demanding his return to the show. Some of you may have forgotten the interview that Omari did earlier in the year when he mentioned Starz reaching out to him to come back.
Asked me before to come back. They asked me in the last year and a half to come back. When I was offered this. When I was in Boston reading this script, I was in Boston saying, okay, then this.
There's clearly more to the situation than Omari wanting more money to return to Power. I believe that Omari not only wanted more money to return, but he also likely wanted some type of creative control within the show. Whether it may be Omari wanting to write some of the episodes or even wanting stock within Starz network. The fact of the matter is we don't know what the real truth is behind the scenes in regards to why Starz and Omari have not reached a deal. And 50 was only answering the question that he was asked about Omari. I believe that there is simply a line of miscommunication between 50 and Omari Hardwick. On one hand, all Omari wanted was the support from Courtney Kemp and 50 when it came to negotiating his deal with Starz. And from 50's standpoint, he seems to have done all that he could do, as far as pushing Starz network to pay Omari what he's asking for. I think that 50 is more so misinformed on the narrative of Omari holding him responsible for not being paid. But one thing that we all should keep in mind is that 50 tends to troll and use sarcasm whenever he's asked about Omari returning to Power, like he's done in the majority of his previous interviews. And some of you have quickly forgotten the interview that Omari did a few months back when he referred to 50 as his boss. Which is why there could be a chance that they both are simply playing along with each other into making us think that there's a real issue. For all we know, these recent interviews between Omari and 50 could be a secret marketing strategy to build up Omari's return to Power down the line. Like I have said before, we would never know whether or not Omari and Starz have reached a deal until we see Omari return on screen. Why would Starz announce Omari's return? That would completely ruin the surprise and suspense. And whoever said that there was a time limit for Omari to return? Tariq's story in Power is still building up to him living up to Ghost's name, so when it comes down to it, a Ghost return in Season 4 of Book 2 would have been somewhat premature. Keep in mind that within the show's timeline, it has only been about 2 years since the death of Ghost. And one thing that I have noticed is that there seems to be a lot of newer Power fans that never watched the OG Power series when it originally aired, and a lot of these newer Power fans don't really see the significance of Ghost's return. And what they are failing to realize is that ever since the final episode of the OG Power series, the writers and showrunners have continued to leave the door open for Ghost's character to return in the future. Other than in Tommy's final perspective episode in the OG series, we never saw Ghost actually die on screen. And Tommy's perspective episode had a number of inconsistencies, with things taking place differently than they did in the other perspectives. For example, the blood being present on the ground next to Ghost in Tariq's perspective, but the blood on the ground wasn't present in Tommy's perspective at all. Or even the encounter that Tommy had with Paz taking place differently. So Ghost dying in Tommy's arms might not necessarily have taken place exactly how we were shown. And if you add on to the fact that we never saw Tasha or anyone in the family go identify Ghost's body at the morgue, unlike every other main character that has died in the show, or the fact that Ghost had a closed casket at the funeral when he only got shot one time in the chest, these are all clues that point to there being something more behind Ghost's supposed death than what we saw on screen. In my opinion, Starz Network wanted to leave room within the spin-offs so that if they ever did end up reaching a deal with Omari, he could be written back in seamlessly so that they could have multiple angles that they could use when explaining how he survived. Just look at the promo that we got before those final 5 episodes premiered. If there was nothing more behind Ghost dying, then why didn't they just title the promo video, "Who Killed Ghost?" This was done specifically to subliminally make us question everything that took place. During Power Book 2, there was one particular moment that no one seemed to question. When Tasha shot at Monet in Season 3 of Book 2. When someone is in witness protection, they are provided guns to keep themselves and their family safe. But there is no way possible that the government supplied Tasha with this type of gun that she shot Monet with. So it makes you wonder, where exactly did Tasha get this type of gun? And how did she have time to track Tariq and locate where he was? Prior to this scene, we never saw Tasha shoot at anyone in this particular fashion. Sure, you can bring up when Tasha killed Lakeisha, but that was really the one and only time where we saw her kill anyone. Another thing that no one seemed to question was the 2 different cars that Tasha had. In the scene where Tommy popped up on Tasha, we can clearly see a minivan in her driveway. But when Tasha went to shoot at Monet, we saw her in the silver SUV that we normally see her in. So where exactly did Tasha have this car put away at? When the final 5 episodes aired, we were so focused on finding out who shot Ghost, but didn't really pay attention to the little things that were taking place that didn't add up. Another thing that went unnoticed is the fact that we never saw Tasha exit out of Club Truth on screen. After Tariq gave Tasha the gun that he shot Ghost with, we didn't see where Tasha went before she exited the club. I always thought that this was somewhat questionable. Could she have been the person who signaled the ambulance to pull around? I believe that Tasha may have not fully been aware of everything within Ghost's plan and everyone else that was involved, but she definitely played some type of part with helping Ghost. In the scenes where we saw Tasha and Ghost arguing over Tariq turning himself in, those could have all been to distract us from what was really taking place. Because like I have shown in my previous Ghost Town videos, the dialogue was completely different within these scenes. And if you add on to the fact that the very first episode of Power was titled, "Not Exactly How We Planned," while the final episode of Season 6 is titled Exactly How We Planned, this makes us wonder whose plan the title was referring to. What all of this means is that there has clearly been some kind of line of communication between Ghost and Tasha. Now, I'm not saying that Tasha knew that Ghost was alive this entire time, but Ghost could have popped up on Tasha off screen and explained why he planned things the way that he did. And how do we really even know whether or not Ghost and Ramona's relationship went beyond what we saw on screen? And one question that never got answered was, why did Tasha end up changing locations from Season 2 to Season 3? And why is Tasha still in the state of New York in witness protection? Surely after the situation of Tommy finding her and taking out the agents guarding her house, she should have been moved out of state. But yet she's still within driving distance of Tariq, where he can pop up on her whenever he wants. This makes you wonder whether or not Tasha is even still in custody of witness protection. And I found it strange that Tasha kept looking away at something as she was hugging Tariq in the finale of Season 4. Everything that I just mentioned clearly shows that the writers and showrunners of Power have continued to leave the door open for a possible Ghost return in the future. Just because Ghost didn't show up in the finale of Season 4 doesn't take away from the fact that his character could still return in the future. For all we know, this could be a marketing ploy by everyone involved with the show to continue building the fans' anticipation. Something as big as Ghost's character returning would need more than one episode. And the way that the finale of Season 4 was shot clearly shows that there were a number of scenes cut out from the final release. At the end of the day, if we just weigh out all of the factors of why Ghost is still alive and why Ghost is dead, there is way more evidence that supports Ghost still being alive within the Power universe. Sure, on the outside looking in, it may seem like Omari is never returning to Power if we just judge everything based off of what was said in interviews. But if we just take into account all of the factors pointing to Ghost being alive, they outnumber every reason why he's dead. So when it comes to my final verdict on whether or not Ghost is never returning, it is still inconclusive. Anything can happen within this next year, and with Tariq's next spin-off likely taking place around 2026.
Stay on set. We got the whole family here. Where is he? There he is.
You got a new addition to this motherfucker.
Coming soon, baby. Coming soon. Tell him, Joe. Coming soon.
That's right. Coming soon. 2026. You guys, this is gonna blow your mind.
That is more than enough time for Omari and Starz Network to finally come to an agreement. Ghost returning down the line would generate the network millions of dollars in viewers, and if you don't think that they realize this, then you are sadly mistaken. We just have to give them more time on building Tariq and Tommy's character before we could get a possible Ghost return to Power. And keep in mind that we would never know whether or not a deal has been reached with Omari until we actually see him on screen again. What do you make of everything that has taken place after we last saw Ghost on screen? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe for all things within the Power universe. See you all next time in the universe of Power.